So hot over there.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Point Counterpoint. Here's your host, Got Mark 76. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Point Counterpoint. I am your host, Scott Mark 76, aka Mark Lindsay. We thank you for joining us, and as always, my tag team partner, Bob Stedford.
I am back once again. Well, good to see you again, Mark. What's going on with you, man?
Not much going on. We have a lot to talk about, including a controversial topic that you and I disagree on. So, Point Counterpoint making its way to the Got Mark 76 channel, DJB Productions Network. We're going to hop right in. Crack it open.
It's time to talk about wrestling. I got to crack a fresh one.
But don't crack it over my skull because we don't agree on this one. And the question that I posed to you and everybody watching was Curt Henning world title material?
Absolutely he was. All right, why don't you start this off since you have the more controversial of the two opinions?
Okay, then I'm going to say this. I am a huge fan of Curt Henning. I was a super huge fan of Mr. Perfect.
Okay.
If you take WWF from 1988 to about 1991 when he was relevant, there was Hulk Hogan, there was Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior, the beginning of Bret Hart. You had all these wrestlers that were larger than life.
Absolutely.
Undertaker came in, debuted. Even Hacksaw Jim Duggan, whether he was a cartoon or not, he was larger than life with the audience. I loved Curt Henning. He always delivered great matches. I just don't know if he would have been a great World Wrestling Federation champion as Mr. Perfect. If he was, and here's the thing, he got hurt in 91? Went out with a back injury, a major back injury, took over a year off. Yeah. Collected that insurance money from the Lloyd's of London insurance.
We've heard so much about those Lloyd's of London over the year.
Yes, we have.
I can't imagine they're still in business with all the payouts they've given.
No, not between him and Rick Rude and everybody else. Road Warrior Hawk, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. So he took over a year off, comes back, has a resurgence of a career. 93 through about 94, 95, but then kind of goes back into the broadcast booth, becomes a manager for Mark Merrow, and then jumps ship, goes to WCW, and gets lost in the shuffle. If you had taken his prime years of 88, 89, 90, and 91 World Wrestling Federation and put him into WCW, I think he would have been a great world champion. But I think his prime years in the WWF, he was not the larger-than-life character that they were pushing at that time.
I agree. I mean, it was just a time frame thing, really, for me. But I do think he is, without a shadow of a doubt, the best competitor in the ring from bell to bell, be it from character, charisma, in-ring ability. He checked all the boxes. And I think he's the best to never have held that championship. But I do understand where you're coming from as far as saying, like, he just didn't have the larger-than-life persona. But he was also the guy that you could stick in there. And I think people would have paid money to see a guy like Savage, a guy like Hogan, a guy like Bret to go in there and try to take that title off him. Like, I think you could have made a ton of money off of the chase. And they always say the money's in the chase. I mean, look at a guy like Daniel Bryan. Like, the money was in his chase. What did he do with the belt as a babyface?
Yeah, right.
If you had a heel champion like you do Curt Hennig, like you would have Mr. Perfect Curt Hennig, I think there would have been much money in multiple chases because you arguably could have started off, if he stayed healthy, you could have had him for Bret and Shawn, and that could have been the guy they both started off their world title programs with before they got to each other. And they could have had that. And, like, I know triple threats weren't a big thing back then, but think of a dream match between Michaels, Perfect, and Hart in their primes.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I do think he was world championship material, but not in WCW. Had WCW figured out how to use him rather than just signing him because he worked for New York, I mean that's a different story. But I don't know what it was. I guess did he have to pay his Lloyd's of London back so he could wrestle again?
I don't know, but I think that's what I've heard, but I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mr. Perfect was ahead of his time, and I really believe he deserved that world heavyweight champion.
Now, see, you bring up a great point. That's something I didn't think of. Now, again, this is 1989, 1990. The Vince McMahon is headstrong on Hulk Hogan.
Sure.
He made the move to give Ultimate Warrior the world championship, and the Warrior project just did not work out. Ultimate Warrior did not draw at the box office. House shows went down. The ratings went down. Saturday Night's Main Event, which was a prominent show on NBC every quarter, did not have high ratings with Ultimate Warrior on top of the card.
The only show ever to delay Saturday Night Live.
Right, absolutely. A huge deal. But Ultimate Warrior lost the title to Sergeant Slaughter just so Hogan could beat Slaughter. If there was ever a time that Curt Henning could have been put in that position, it would have been right there. Have him beat Warrior, and then you have the big match with Hogan at WrestleMania. But then, you're talking about the Iraqi sympathizer when Sergeant Slaughter was a heel at the time.
It was a timely heel.
Yeah.
That's all it was. It was nothing but story. Like you weren't going to have classic matches between Slaughter and Warrior, Slaughter Hogan, Slaughter Savage. Like Slaughter served his part, but nobody's ever going to remember him as one of the best ever.
Nope, not at all. Yeah, right.
But if you took that opportunity and you put the belt on Perfect, I really think you got something there, because look at that Saturday Night's Main Event. I think it was, I could be wrong here, I think it was one of the highest rated Saturday Night Main Event. It was Hogan against Perfect on Saturday Night's Main Event. It was a tag of some sort, but having Perfect in that main event drew them the big number.
I think it was Hogan and Warrior versus Perfect and the Genius.
And the Genius, that's what it was. Okay,
yep.
Sorry, my mind goes blank sometimes. But
I'm a mark, and I didn't take as many bumps as you, so
I know more about wrestling, and I've forgotten even more. Yeah, like even the house show loop, like in that time, the main event, like people were paying good money to see Perfect get his ass kicked by Hulk Hogan. And like I feel like maybe his size held him back, which sounds silly, but like Perfect was a big dude. Like he was bigger than Bret.
He was jacked.
But he wasn't Hogan. He wasn't Warrior. Like those were the two guys that were pushing. Like even when Savage had his time, he was a smaller guy, but he just had too much charisma. It was undeniable.
Now, he was AWA world champion back in the days, but at that time, the AWA was way past its glory years. They had lost Hogan. They had lost Dr. Schultz. They had lost Ken Patera, Bobby Heenan, Gene Okerlund. So the AWA was kind of like in the later stages, closer to its death than they were in the glory days.
Sure.
But he had his solid run, defeated Nick Bockwinkel for the title, lost it to Jerry Lawler. So, yes, I could have seen him as a world champion because I saw him in the AWA as a world champion. I just didn't think at that time. But let me give Mr. Perfect credit because, again, I don't want it to sound like I'm hating on him. I loved what he did to the Intercontinental title. He made that belt so relevant. He made it important.
That belt
Absolutely, yes. And when somebody like Kerry Von Erich came in, Kerry Von Erich, the stories we could tell about Kerry, it's only a half-hour show. I think Mr. Perfect was supposed to drop the title to Brutus Beefcake. Then Beefcake had that parasailing accident, and then enter Kerry Von Erich, and you have SummerSlam 90 happening, and Curt Henning puts over Kerry Von Erich, and then Kerry Von Erich has a great run for about 6 months as Intercontinental Champion.
Nobody was better. Texas Tornado was so exciting in that day. And he's another guy they squandered and didn't do enough with. And you wonder where would he be today had he gotten
clean
more limelight and a significant push.
If he had gotten clean, where would he be? You know, it's like. But I guess if you have an amputated foot. Well, yeah, right, absolutely. So let's fast forward. So Curt Hennig goes to World Championship Wrestling. He immediately gets put into the U.S. title picture with Diamond Dallas Page, and he becomes a member of the Four Horsemen, which was very short-lived. If they had stuck and stayed with that Four Horsemen storyline, I think Curt Hennig would not have gotten lost in the NWO shuffle. And who knows what would have happened when Bret Hart eventually came in. You could have had a re-ignition of that feud between Hart and Perfect.
Sure.
Another missed opportunity.
Oh, I agree with that completely. I mean, we did get Bret Hart, or Curt Hennig matches at that point in time. We did get that in WCW, but it certainly wasn't the level of match that we're talking about with like SummerSlam 91.
Right.
Which is still a match I see once to twice a year just because I watch it. Like that was, like when I was training to wrestle, like that was tape study at its finest. And like you watch some of my matches, like I'm not even going to try to hide it. We just straight up stole like 3-minute sequences of that match just because it was so perfect, for a lack of a better term. But
a burning image of that match was Henning's strap ripped off and Bret Hart having him in the sharp. Yep. And Bret Hart having him in the sharpshooter, and oh my God, it just
with the coach on the outside.
Yeah, John Tolvis.
Well, why do you think they? Now that we're just talking about that real quick, why do you think they kept sticking him with mouthpieces? He could talk.
He could talk. Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
He's a guy that didn't need it. Like, but some of the guys he was in feuds with, like early Bret Hart, could have stood to have a mouthpiece at that point in time. I love Bret dearly. I believe in the patron saint of Bret the Hitman Hart, but like in that time period, he wasn't microphone ready.
Right. He was getting there.
He was getting there. But and then WCW, the fun part with him is when they went to the West Texas Rednecks.
Rap is crap.
Rap is crap. Whoa, I hate rap. I feel like that was like really the first thing in WCW other than the Four Horsemen and slamming the door on Flair's head. Like I feel like that was the first thing he could sink his teeth into, as campy and corny as it was. Like what they had him with Bobby Duncombe Jr., Barry Windham,
Kendall Windham, yeah, yep.
Kendall Windham. I'm sorry.
No, and Barry Windham, yeah. Well, Barry and Henning were world tag team champions.
Yeah, no, it was good. I mean, it was a good pairing, like something to sink their teeth into. But much like everything in that era, it just went by the wayside.
Well, because it wasn't Hulk Hogan, and it wasn't Kevin Nash, and it wasn't Scott Hall, and it wasn't everybody else they were pushing.
2000.
Oh my God. Well, look, we're going to switch topics.
Fancy.
I know. We got some money. We're not getting paid, but there's money in the budget for the show.
The budget. So. We actually have a budget now. I've got a green screen. Oh, it's wonderful. I thank Danny J Productions every day for the paydays.
So, who, in your opinion, I know we had a discussion about this a few weeks ago where we had given David Arquette a hard time. Who was a world champion that you think never should have been world champion?
Oh, my goodness. I got to go back to what you said. Like, as a kid, I liked Warrior. But I don't know. That's a tough one. Who shouldn't have been champion? Well, obviously, David Arquette. Okay, all right, Jeff Jarrett. I'm going to just throw Jeff Jarrett out there.
No, why not?
Jeff Jarrett, to me, is a perennial mid-carder. When I think Jeff Jarrett, I think he's a good hand. He's going to give you a solid match with decent storytelling. But when I think of a world title, I think of it as, like, that's the face of your company. And I just don't think Jarrett was ever that guy. WCW tried to make him that guy at the end of the company, but it just didn't click. Like, you can throw your slap nuts out there, you can beat the whack pack over the head with a guitar all you want, but it's just, I don't know, it's mid-card to me. It was like the whole thing with the guitar is too, it makes me think of Honky Tonk Man, and I would never put Honky Tonk Man in the main event. No matter how much heat he was drawing, he's not there. But for me, I'm going to go Jeff Jarrett.
I think that's a great choice. I think Jeff Jarrett in his later WCW days was great. I do. I think.
I enjoyed it. I'm not saying that, but
well, NWO 2000 aside, Jeff Jarrett was, I think, well, he was tight with Vince Russo, which had a lot to do with it. I think he was solid. He was strong, and I think he was world champion material. But I see your point, because there was a lot of Jeff Jarrett. You got a lot of the same matches with Jeff Jarrett, regardless of who he was in the ring with.
Sure.
And
it was very Flair-esque.
Yes, and nothing was more a pinpoint of that than his time as TNA champion back in the early days of TNA. Every match had a screw job finish. Every match, he was on the verge of losing, and then it would always find a way to. And it got old after so long.
Same match, almost move to move, and the same story told. And just going back real quick, I know we just skipped ahead to TNA, but like, I don't think the way that they started him as world champion did him any favors with that weird Bash at the Beach 2000 screw job.
Yeah,
he did to Hogan. Like, I don't think that helped him at all. I mean, granted, I believe didn't Booker beat him later that night?
Yeah. Yep.
But still already, like, this guy can't already hold a championship for an hour and a half, and you're going to make him the face of your company?
Yeah. Point taken.
On Booker, but that's another story for another day.
In my opinion, there was a guy, I'm going to go a little old school, and that was Ron Garvin.
Okay.
Ric Flair was looking to, I guess, win number 5, and they needed to find an opponent that was believable to take the world championship. And he had kind of started this feud with Jimmy Garvin after the summer of '87, and then Flair beat Jimmy Garvin, won Precious, Jimmy Garvin's valet, for a night, and it was Ron Garvin dressed up as Precious that attacked Ric Flair in the hotel room.
Oh, I remember.
Set up a big match between Ron Garvin and Ric Flair. Ron Garvin wins the world title in a great match. Don't get me wrong, the match was phenomenal, but Flair was involved. And then he has this 1 month, maybe month and a half title reign where he loses it in November. He won it in September, lost it in November at Starrcade to Flair, so Flair can get number 5. And I just remember the entire month and a half that Ron Garvin was champion. He barely came on TV with the title. He barely defended the title. It was a month and a half title reign. And it was like, what was the point of that? And even though back then I'm like 9 years old, I just knew, well, this guy's not going to be champ for long. Ric Flair's going to beat him the next time he wrestles. And sure enough, he did.
Now, do you think he doesn't deserve to be world champion because he's Ronnie Garvin? Or do you think he doesn't deserve to be world champion because of the booking?
The booking. And I would say that you had somebody at that time who I would have believed as world champion in Barry Windham. If Barry Windham had won the title, I think that would have been believable. And I'll be talking more about Barry later on in the show.
One of the most underrated talents of all time.
Absolutely. So you say, I'm sorry, you said Jeff Jarrett.
J-A-R-R-E-T-T.
Jeff Jarrett, slot nuts. And then I go Ron Garvin.
All right.
So then that's going to bring us up to our final point. And that is, who was a wrestler that wasn't world champion but should have been?
All right. I took the last one first. You go first this time.
Well, I mentioned his name earlier. I'm going to say Barry Windham. Barry Windham was the international, or was the NWA world champion in 1993 when the title got resurrected in 92. But he was never the WCW or World Wrestling Federation champion, and he should have been. Barry Windham had all the tools. He could talk, he had the look, he could wrestle, and he could make any talent look so much better than they were in the ring. He was like Ric Flair in so many ways, but not Ric Flair. He was like a veteran, a tough fighter, somebody that you went to war with and you could believe this guy's fighting for his victory. He's fighting, he's giving you everything he has. Ric Flair just made everything look so easy. He was a cocky heel, he was so good at it, and you watched him and you're like, okay, that's Ric Flair. But this was Barry Windham. He was a fighting champion, a fighting man, and just everything he did was so believable. So I wish Barry had a run at the top of WCW.
I agree. I don't disagree with your choice at all. I think it's a wonderful pick. And, like, not only he could do everything in the ring, and not to mention just that, he had the size of Hogan. And that's what goes, like, I mean, he wasn't as muscular. He's not going to pose at the end of every show. but he had the height and the frame and everything. I think Barry Windham's a great choice. And for me, I'm going Scott Hall, Razor Ramon. I think, well, for me, it's Curt Henning, but we talked enough about him. So I'm giving you another choice. And at some point in time, I'm going to kidnap you and bring you over to my house and force feed you Mr. Perfect Curt Henning matches until you get on my side of things, you J-Brone. But no, I'm going Razor Ramon, Scott Hall. I understand why he was never the face of the company for all his demons. And for those who don't know, demons equal drugs. But like Razor Ramon in WWF, like they had a chance when he was feuding with Bret Hart around Royal Rumble 93.
93, yep.
They had that classic match at the Rumble. That's another one I watch every so often. I really think Razor was a guy, and they should have pulled the trigger with it. His promo was incredible. He was a merch machine back in the day. You always saw the Razor Ramon T-shirts, even when he was bad guy. Like they had to force feed us him as a bad guy, but the crowd, like he was one of the first cool heels, as the business tends to have sometimes. But I don't remember like there being a cool heel like that. Like he's the guy I always cheered for in matches, unless he was up against Bret. But for me, it's got to be Scott Hall. And like I said, I understand why WCW never pulled the trigger. He just wasn't a trustworthy figure at the time. I've had the pleasure of meeting Scott Hall since he's been clean. I have nothing but good things to say about him. I think he's the nicest guy in the world. You ever have a chance to go to an autograph signing, pay your $15 for a picture, he'll talk your ear off about wrestling until you're done talking about wrestling.
Well, I'm glad you broke it down because I always thought I loved the Razor Ramon character. I just didn't like, or I didn't think he would have been champion at that time. If he had stayed, if he had never went to WCW, I think they would have eventually made him world champion. You figure Diesel had a run, Shawn Michaels. They kind of made it known about the Clique, towards the end of their run. If he had stuck around through the summer of '96, Shawn Michaels gets the title at WrestleMania 12 in that 1 hour match with Bret Hart, and he would have needed an opponent. And Big Van Vader was a great opponent. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking anything away from Big Van Vader. But you could have easily had Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon one more time. And hey, let's make it a ladder match. Sure. It could have been. So, yeah, I think if he had stayed, they eventually would have given.
You go back to their history. The story writes itself.
Absolutely. And
maybe you have Razor beat Shawn. Shawn beats Razor. And then to solve it all, you throw the belt up on a ladder and see what happens.
They had the ladder match rematch at SummerSlam 95, which, again, that match doesn't get the credit I think it deserves. That match was just as good. Yeah, same here. Yep, same here.
But it's not the original of the two.
Now, let's fast forward to Scott Hall in WCW. Again, he comes over, brings Kevin Nash with him, in the storyline. But you're not going to make him champion when Hulk Hogan's there. It was almost like we know the politics. We know it now. Back then, we had an idea of it. But you just know that there was limitations with these guys and what they could do. And then they signed these guaranteed contracts. So Scott Hall didn't have to really push for anything. He got the guaranteed money anyway. So I think his match quality started slowing down. And any chance he had of being WCW champion kind of went to the wayside because he was a shell of himself. Now, we can say it's the demons. It may have been the demons at play, but if you have guaranteed money, where's the work ethic? You're getting paid anyway.
What's encouraging you to put that extra in? Once you're already at the top of the mountain, like, where do you go from there? What's pushing you? What's driving you?
And you're not going to go back to New York because you screwed them over. So.
Screwed them over.
Oh, well. Well, listen, man, just like that, another 30 minutes went quick and by the wayside, Bob. We're doing it again.
Well, I don't know if by the wayside. I mean, your opinion about Mr. Perfect should go by the wayside. But you know, I don't think the show itself should go by.
No, the show itself was very good, but no, you're right. Maybe I need to come over. We need to watch some Mr. Perfect matches, and maybe you can change my mind.
Hey, you don't have to tell me. I'll spend the day tomorrow watching them all.
And I'll join you for a cup of brews, and maybe that'll help me inspire me as well.
Absolutely.
Well, Bob, thank you for joining me for another episode of Point Counterpoint. He is Bob Stedford. I am Mark Lindsay. Please subscribe to the Got Mark 76 YouTube channel and the DJB Productions Network, and we will see you next week here on Point Counterpoint. Goodbye, everybody. The proceeding was brought to you by Got Mark 76 in association with That Way Cool Wrestling Show. Please subscribe to Got Mark 76 and DJB Productions Network on YouTube, and until next time, we'll see you at the matches.